All right, everybody, can I have your attention? I'm going to get started. Thank everyone for coming tonight. This has to be one of the biggest, if not the biggest crowd ever for DNR night. So thank you, everybody, for attending. A few thank yous to do here. Can't hear me, Jay? As loud as I can yell. Now, can you hear me? Okay. I'd like to thank Colin and Seth and the staff here at Oak Hill for having us. They did a great job. We got here at 4 o'clock expecting to set tables up, and they had things ready for us. So how about a round of applause for those guys? We got our DNR staff here tonight. They do a great job every year. They do a great job for our fisheries. So how about a round of applause for those guys too? Something really important to our club is our sponsors. You see some sponsor posters around. They've been on the screen here. We raised almost $25,000 this year to help with our kids programs. Put ourselves in front of probably 700 kids this summer and all year actually. So that money came in pretty dang important. Every kid that attended our events got some sort of tackle. We help at Camp Autumn. They don't get tackled, but we provide the fishing equipment for Camp Autumn. So we've done a pretty good job, I think, in front of all those kids. Something a little different. I'd like to ask any guy or any person that volunteered at our kids events this year to stand up. Stick your hand up. Stand up. These guys gave their time to help us. On the tables, you'll see a sheet, sign-up sheet, that we'd appreciate if anybody feels like they can spend some time with our kids. Please sign that up. We will send that to the Iowa State Extension. They'll probably send you an email and vet you, but it's not a real big deal. Pretty easy to do. So please consider volunteering. The other thing is, will our board members please stand up? These guys make this club go. They put in a lot of hours. We do want to mention one of our board members, Gary Peterman, had surgery lately. He's struggling a little bit, but things seem to be going on the right track. We hope we can have him back with us pretty soon. 20th, he's coming home. Okay. Probably to me tonight, the most important group that's here, though, is our veterans. Today is Veterans Day. So I'd like all you veterans to stand up, stay standing. We're going to pass some raffle tickets out to you. We do appreciate your service. Thank you very much. They will have a special raffle with these tickets. It's tickets for the rods reels back there. That is their raffle. Get your ticket. You can call your number out. Go back and pick whatever you need. So we're going to start the night off. These guys are getting their tickets. There's a group from Spencer High School. It's called the No Boundaries Group. Kelly, you want to come up and introduce those kids? Kelly? Okay. Come on over here. Tell them what you're doing.
Hello everybody. You do? Oh man. So we're with the No Boundaries group here in Spencer, Iowa. So Jerome, Brady, I'm Abe. Nice to meet everybody. This is Mason, and our partners for our project are Kelly and Paul. Speak up to them. Oh, be louder? Sorry about that. Okay. Should we start our presentation? I don't know if
So while she's getting this ready, the No Boundaries group, if those of you that aren't familiar with it, in Spencer and in the Lakes area, they're a group of kids, sometimes high schoolers, middle schoolers, I believe, as well in the No Boundaries program. And different groups, clubs like ours or nonprofits, etc., go to them, and there's an actual interview process where they get to choose what project they want to help with. And throughout the year, they're going to go through and try to help a club with a project or a service organization with something they're looking to do. Maybe something that they don't have the resources to accommodate that, but it's something on their list of things that they'd like to get done. So we actually won that interview process. Ours was called Fishing Utopia, and these guys went through and they picked it, and we're very glad that they picked us, and they're going to tell us a little more about it.
This is what No Boundaries is. So like Paul said, it's a program offered by Spencer High School. And us students, we get to choose our projects. So at the beginning of the year, we started with something that we call Partnerpalooza. And it's kind of like speed dating, where a lot of people came in to share with us their project. And then we spent like 4 minutes with them, just talking about what it might be. And then we got to choose which ones we liked. So we had the opportunity to choose 2 projects. So for myself, it was the Fishing Utopia project and one called We Need More Life. And that's at occasions at the Senior Center here in Spencer, I guess. In No Boundaries, we get to learn to work with team members, so this team and other teams. And it's just more about collaborating with your peers. We work with the adults, so because they're the ones that pitch the project. So in this case, it'd be Kelly and Paul. And throughout the year, you just work on the projects. It's 3 periods out of our school day that we get to do it. And we meet with our partners every 2 to 3 weeks just to talk about the progress that we've had and what we should look more into or what they think we should do and shouldn't do. And it's been good working with the project, so thanks for that.
Alright, so what our project is. So first off, we're working with Paul Daniels and Kelly Cook. Paul just happens to work at Northwest Bank, and Kelly and Paul are both trying to improve Stolley's just like the group and I. We're trying to make it a better fishery and have more popularity introduced within Stolley's. And there's easier, so we're trying to have easier access so people don't need to go very far to fishing, like the lakes and stuff. Just like it's right there, and easy, just overall easy. And lastly, we're trying to make it more accessible physically, and hopefully your next slide will tell us that.
Our goals, our first goal for Stolley's is to have clean water and for a variety of fish, and so that the DNR will stock Stolley's. Our second goal is for big catches for everyone. So like to allow people that aren't usually like into fishing to go up to Stolley's and catch a big fish and probably get into it and see what it's about. And then third goal is popular fishing for our community. So like you don't have to go up to the lakes to go fishing and travel so far. And then our final goal is for more fishing access at Stolley's, so like clearing out brush and like making it easier to get to.
Alright, so some of the things we're looking into right now is funding. We need funding, so like REAP grants. We got a meeting here coming up. We're looking at water quality. We've learned it's not so good. We're looking at ways to improve water quality and maintain it. For fish habitats, we've looked into artificial habitats, pallets, and cedar trees. fishing access, we've looked into fishing docks and fishing jetties, which is kind of like just laying down gravel so you can physically get out further. And then, yeah, we reached out to some experts and set up meetings and stuff.
So some people that we reached out to was Mike Hawkins. We've talked to him just to see what he recommends for Stolley's. We've reached out to Bob Fullhart, who is the Spencer Parks and Recreation Director. So again, he's been in charge of Stolley's for the last couple of years. And, we've just talked to him to see what he had planned previously for Stolley's and just what he recommended also. We've also talked to Brianne Blom, which is the Clay County Conservationist and Environmental Education Coordinator and the naturalist in Clay County. We've reached out to her too. Recently we reached out to her for more information on water quality, and that was, we're looking to talk to her later next week just to see how we can test water quality out there and stuff. And we've reached out to Victoria DeVos, which is the Plymouth County Conservationist, and she has lots of experience with REAP grants. So we're hoping to get the insight on how we can apply for a REAP grant and maybe have our project chosen.
That's what, yeah.
So that's our presentation. Thanks for having us, and hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.
So one thing to help these guys, raise of hands, who's fished Stolley's here before? Pretty good number, right? Probably more than what you thought. Raise of hands, who would fish Stolley's more if there was better fishing? Okay, so that's the type of impact that these guys don't necessarily have an understanding of what it is to have a fishery like that in Spencer and the improvements that they could make and what it could do for that community. So just want to give that, give these guys a little perspective on that their project matters. So thanks for that.
Thank you, guys. That's a pretty cool group because these guys took the initiative on their own. They contacted our board and asked for help, so kudos to them. Okay, Mike, you're on the hook. Oh, Greg, you want to go first? Did you? Okay. Greg Harson, District County Conservation Officer, is going to give a little presentation and introduce his staff here.
Thanks, Terry. So, you probably saw a lot of Water Patrol on the water this summer. Let's see a show of hands who got their license checked on the water this summer. Just a few of you? Oh, we got to do a better job than that. You should have all raised your hand. So these guys have a different job. Our Water Patrol program that I wanted to discuss with you tonight is we usually bring 8 to 12 kids up here to work the water during the summer. This is a pretty big body of water, pretty big complex up here that we need a lot of coverage on. Those kids are putting in about 3,000 to 5,000 hours a summer on the water. That's not sitting at the Lake Patrol, that's on the water. And so without that, we'd probably be in dire straits. One of the things that happened to us this year is we've lost our housing for our Water Patrol. We usually bring kids in from SDSU who already have a lease on a house up there, Iowa State, any of the other colleges. So if you know anybody locally that would be interested in that 20, 21-year-old range, have them get a hold of us or go on to iowadnr.gov and find an application there. It is a tough application. When in May we'd have them go down to Camp Dodge for 2 weeks and have DT training and all sorts of different types of things like that. And then we'd put them on the water and train them how to drive 80 to, now this year, $200,000 boats. So we're gonna need some help with that. So if anybody in here can help us out with that, to figure out a way to either house Water Patrol or find local kids that would be interested in that, we'd really appreciate it. So the pay's not the greatest, but the experience and job recruitment is huge. Our placement is a little bit over 90% for the Water Patrol, the staff that's there. The next thing I wanted to talk about is EO10. Has anybody heard of EO10, Executive Order 10 by the governor? That is to redo the entire administrative code for the state of Iowa. So most of your fishing regulations, hunting regulations, dock rules are in administrative code. And we will be redoing all of those codes in the next, well, docks is in the process right now. Next year it'll be a lot of the fishing regulations. If there's stuff that you see in there that you just wonder why, or if there's something you want added, this is the time to start looking at that and start speaking up. So one of the things we hear about all the time is ice shacks having to have name and address. If you don't like that, then you need to be at one of these meetings and say how you want to do it instead. This is the way the laws are going to get changed. So be sure you're there to help change these laws, because they're all going to get opened up. With that said, our officers for Dickinson County, Blake Mills and Dan Dirks. Blake, did you want to say something? No, you got to talk.
One of the things that just came up a little bit ago, I didn't realize the No Boundaries group from Spencer was going to talk. Just for people's knowledge, last week I met with the No Boundaries group out of Okoboji Middle School, and their project focus, not to spill the beans or anything, but if anyone hears about it or if they approach anyone about it, is about littering in public areas. I thought it's pretty neat because everyone's seeing, the pop cans or McDonald's sacks out in the road ditches. But unless you're actually out hunting and fishing, seeing the shorelines or the public areas, a lot of the general public don't see those areas, and that's kind of where their focus is. The kids I've met with are into the outdoors, they're into hunting and fishing, and so they've seen it. And one of the things that came up when we were talking about it is one of the kids found a trampoline on one of our public areas. So their focus is how can we clean up and stop some of the littering on public areas so that A, it doesn't look bad, and B, it just is a general better perspective for people in the outdoors. So that's what the Okoboji group is doing. And then the other thing just wanted to hit on is anyone late season fishing, just keep in mind water temps. Not making an example of it, but this summer we had a handful of drownings. With water getting colder, if you're getting older, maybe your boat is not as stable, anything like that, just keep in mind those life jackets. I couldn't tell you how many times we're on navigation stops. When we ask to see life jackets, it's let's open every compartment on the boat just to find them. So make sure those are handy, easy to grab, you know where they're at, and if you're unsure of yourself, just maybe consider wearing it. So, ma'am.
That's the beauty of being third line, is that these gentlemen pretty much cover everything. So I'm just going to introduce myself. I wasn't here last year, unfortunately, but Dan Dirks. Really, that's about it. One of the conservation officers up here. I've had the pleasure of working with a lot of members of the fishing club at youth events. I think this past summer up at Isthmus Park. Also at, I'm trying to think of Camp Foster too for a fishing day. So just want to give out compliments. It's a great organization that does a lot for the communities, and just appreciate what you guys do. That's about all I have.
In the back of the room, we'll have some things for you to take tonight. We've got whistles and we've got bags. If you want to throw one of these bags in your boat so that you can, if you got cans or whatever, throw in the bag, cinch it down so it doesn't blow out of the boat. Those will be back there for you. And then the whistles. One of the requirements is a bell horn or whistle in your boat, so you have no excuse. So, all right, I'm gonna turn it over to Mike.
Thanks, you guys. That was great. I do want to mention, Dan touched on it a little bit. When we have a kids event, they make themselves so available to us to come and talk about water safety. School of the Wild this September, they were there for 4 days in a row at noon, helping us out with a water safety presentation, and the kids loved it. They went into detail, and it was really amazing what they do for our club. So, Mike. Kim's gonna go first? All right. Kim Hawkins.
Hello, everybody. My name is Kim Hawkins. I'm the Hatchery Fisheries Manager at the Spirit Lake Fish Hatchery. I've been in the hatchery for about 20 years now, plus working some research a little bit. in between there. And today I'm just going to run through what we produced this year for anglers of Iowa at our hatchery. So we'll just start with broodstock and walleye fry. And I don't have these numbers memorized. So this year the hatchery produced about 74 million walleye fry for the state of Iowa. We stocked those into 36 different water bodies, and about 75% of those actually go into our broodstock, back into our broodstock lakes, Spirit Lake, Clear Lake, Storm, East and West, and then the rest get covered into those other water bodies throughout northwest Iowa. We also have Rathbun Hatchery in southern Iowa that produce walleyes for Iowa, and they hatched about 95 million fry this year and stocked 15 water bodies. So they kind of handle the southern and eastern portion of the state, and we handle the central and western portion. So between those two facilities, we got a lot of walleye fry out there. Just for northwest Iowa, those bottom lakes are some places we stocked, and then many, many more. So the next thing we raise are northern pike and muskies. Those are the three species we raise at the hatchery. Northern pike we usually stock as sack fry, which are basically when they newly hatch, and they go into our shallow lakes in northwest Iowa. We have 12 lakes we stock there. And muskies, we actually raise them till fall. They go down to this Rathbun hatchery to overwinter, and then they'll be stocked as yearlings. So this spring in May, they stocked about 2,400 fish, yearling muskies in 8 Iowa lakes. And through the summer, we still do more stockings. So summer, we stock our rivers in Iowa. So again, Rathbun Hatchery and a few other hatcheries down south, along with Spirit Lake, stock our river systems with 2-inch walleyes. So we stocked the northwest Iowa rivers of Little Sioux, Big Sioux, and the Des Moines rivers. And throughout those locations, we have about 7 different stretches that we stocked with 300,000 walleyes. Rathbun Hatchery is a much bigger facility, and they have a lot more capacity, so they stocked over 600,000 walleyes in the eastern and southern portion of Iowa. And finally, we get to fall. We just wrapped this up in the middle of October. Sad, December's almost here. We stocked about 120,000 fall fingerlings. Only about 20,000 of those are raised in our hatchery, and the rest of them are raised in Welch Lake, which is actually between Big Spirit and Highway 86. 57-acre shallow lake that we put fry in every spring and let them grow, and then feed them forage and take them out in the fall. They are about 7 to 8 inches when they come out, and we actually stocked more fish this fall than Rathbun did this year. But their fish are usually 8 to 9 inches, and theirs went into 8 water bodies. So I was keeping it nice and short and sweet, so that we can keep going with research and with management, because I know they have some good talks too. But that's what we produced this year for Iowa anglers. So next up. I'm not sure if they started stocking them yet. They had to reach a 4-inch body size. Rathbun Hatchery, for the first time this year, raised paddlefish for Rathbun Reservoir. It was a brand new species that the hatcheries were asked to produce, so they're in the infancy stage of seeing if they can raise them. And I believe they come from Nebraska or Missouri. Paddlefish. Do you know where they came from? They came from a Missouri hatchery, so that's not something that we raise. And so a lot of Midwest states will trade fish for stocking. So we'll get perch and things like that. And now paddlefish. Missouri gets muskies from us when they're in July. So we do a lot of fish trades, and it really is advantageous for a lot of the Midwest states. So as soon as they figure out how his system is going, it's getting shut down. Jonathan Meerbeek is the natural natural lakes research biologist up at the hatchery. And he might have a presentation.
Right, yeah. Looks like it's gonna work. Like Kim said, I'm natural lakes research biologist. DJ Vogler is the technician. He's in the red sweatshirt back there. So you see someone out must be that. So we're seeing someone out sampling on these lakes. It's a high probability it's DJ. Doing a lot of different sampling. We have several different research projects, and I'm trying to just do a real short introduction on some of the stuff we got going on. I encourage each and every one of you, if you're more interested in this work that we're doing that Mike or I or any one of us are sharing, please stop by the hatchery, call the hatchery, make an appointment with one of us. We'd love to talk to you guys about the fisheries and what you guys are observing out there on the water as well. We had an angler stop in the other day, and we ended up talking to him for an hour and a half about muskie populations and some of the work we're doing. So don't be shy to call and stop by and talk to us about some of the things that you're seeing as well, because those are all good observations. But like I said, I'm just going to give a real brief overview on some of the projects we've been working on in terms of research. One of the main ones we've been working on here lately that just wrapped up a couple weeks ago is looking at walleye populations in some of our natural lakes that we don't tend to have a lot of sampling data on. Some of those that get stocked, like the Inghams and the Silver in Palo Alto County, that there's just not a lot of time and effort put into those lakes because we just don't have that kind of time. But this research project was developed in order to see what our walleye products are doing in those lakes. One, we stock fry in almost all of those systems. So are those fry recruiting in each of those lakes? So what we're doing here on your left is we're pulling a seine, and we do that at night, and we're doing about 4 sites in each lake and trying to see what we're catching for young of the year fish, stuff that was born this year. So there's an example there of the picture of some of the things we caught in one of the lakes we were sampling to just kind of get an idea if walleye, our fry stockings work. Then we'll go back in later in the fall and do some night electrofishing and just see what the whole population looks like. That's typically geared towards age 0s and age 1 fish, but you also get a good sample a lot of times of the older fish too. So we take age and growth structure, so we can look at population dynamics like growth, recruitment, and mortality, and kind of get a better handle on what these populations are doing. So we have data to make management decisions and to make stocking decisions. This was another thing that's very important because each of these lakes also get stocked with fingerlings, and fingerlings are expensive. So we want to make sure those fingerling products go into lakes that need them, and that we're not just stocking on top of an already good year class that we had from the fry stocking. So that's what this project is pretty much about. And here's just some of that seine data that I was talking about. We're out there doing those 4 night hauls at each of these lakes. I think there's about 10 lakes on this. You can see the variability in these lakes. So these would be naturally reproduced or naturally spawned fish or our fry stock fish. Five Island had a huge year class this year. Over 250 fish in 4 seine hauls, and that's like one of the most I've ever seen out of a seine haul survey. So it should be looking good for Five Island for recruitment. But we can also identify that, hey, there's good recruitment in a lot of these lakes. Over 50 fish per seine haul or per survey usually indicates a successful year class from our fry stocking. We also can identify where those stockings really did take. We didn't catch a single young of the year walleye in Lost Island this year. Well, we'll stock that one. And the same thing with East Okoboji, there wasn't much in there. Well, we're going to stock that one. So we use this data in order to determine where our stocking should be held. And those are the 2 lakes that we put a lot of priority to this year in terms of stocking because we knew recruitment wasn't very good from the young fish. And those are the numbers that we put in there, those fish that Kim was talking about, those 6 to 8 inch fish. So these projects can be useful in making actual meaningful management decisions. And then here's just the length frequency of fish that were caught in Five Island Lake. So you saw the seining data, we caught a ton of fish in the seine. Well, our fall electrofishing information also shows a ton of fish. So we're starting to develop relationships between what we're seeing in the seine and what's happening out there later in the year. So we know that's a big year class. And we also take in information on those other fish. Like I said, we take a structure to estimate the age of the fish and get all that good information like growth, recruitment, and mortality. And like it's kind of been trying to hit home here, we're using that information to make the best decisions on stocking our fall fingerling product because they're expensive. We want to make sure they're being used wisely. And that ultimately ends up being more walleye for the angler. And just another thing that you get out of doing these lecture fishing investigations is you get a little bit of a glimpse of what the fishery is like. This is just looking at the number of total harvestable size walleye that we caught during our fall lecture fishing event, and that would be like 12 inches or larger. I think you guys all know where you want to go fishing this next year. You can see that slide, but a lot of good fisheries out there, but there's one that stands out. The next project I want to briefly talk about is one that I think I've talked to this group before about yellow bass. Yellow bass have been a problem in some of these natural lakes. They're not native to natural lakes. They get stunned and become super abundant and cause really bad, devastating effects to the fishery that can be very difficult to overcome. And this was a gill net that was set for about a half hour, I think, in one of our natural lakes. If you end up with that many yellow bass in a gill net in a half hour, you have problems. And we have some of those lakes that have problems like that. One in particular is Lake Cornelia. I'm not sure if many of you have probably been to Lake Cornelia, but it is a pretty unique fishery, 242 acres that lies in Wright County, just north of Clarion. And they don't have many fishing opportunities in that area. They have Clear Lake's pretty much their closest fishing lake that they can go to. Well, we wanted to make this lake better. It had a very high density of yellow bass. We estimated about 385 pounds per acre. And that's about 1 million fish in this system that were just yellow bass, just taking up all the biomass of fish, causing very poor growth, and the fishery really suffered. So we ended up doing in that lake last November, about this time of year, we coordinated with a lot of our management teams and did a low-dose rope-node treatment. And many of you probably have heard the term rope node being thrown out there before. And basically what it is a fish toxicant that at certain levels it can target certain fish species to kill in order to renovate the system. Usually when we're using this product, we make it hot, so we kill everything because we want to renovate the entire fishery. Well, we can set it at specific limits. Like in this case, we were looking at 8 parts per billion, so very small amount. These jugs here were one boat ended up deploying in one section of the lake, so a very small amount of product. And we can actually kill these fish off, and we're hoping to, an experimental project, hoping to kill off the yellow bass so we can make room for other species. And so we did that in November. We found some dead fish there immediately that fall, and we were really uncertain because we thought we'd see windrose yellow bass, but we didn't really see that. They ended up just all sinking to the bottom. Regardless, we ended up sampling the lake a ton of times over the year, never caught a yellow bass. So it appears to have worked. And another thing that we did with that system is we stocked it very heavy with some top-level predators. We did a very unique stocking where we put muskies in that lake, we put blue catfish that are adults in that lake, we put flathead catfish in that lake, restocked it with walleye, largemouth bass were put in that lake just to have that predator base in case yellow bass, we didn't get them all and they have a big year class. However, that has not happened yet, and it is looking like it can be a very useful management tool for lakes that have problems with yellow bass in the future. So we're going to be still evaluating that project over the next few years. Another thing I just wanted to briefly talk about, and I may have talked to this group about our yearling muskie survival estimates in our projects looking at telemetry. You may have seen me out and some of my crew out on this boat on Spirit Lake this year. If you have this year or the previous years, what we've been doing is we're looking at survival of our stocked yearling muskies. As we saw some population declines in Spirit Lake in the mid-2010s, and we were wondering why that was. Anyway, we progressed over time to be stocking larger fish. And one of the methods that we can get big fish is to treat them like food fish, where like they produce, what would it be, what species, or what? catfish, trout, or the big food fish where you're raising them basically in tanks their entire life. These products here, we call them recirculating aquaculture systems. That's how they were raised. They were raised in a tank their entire life for a year. We fed them pellets instead of minnows. Then we took them off and put them in a pond and let them feed on fathead minnows for 1 month. Put telemetry tags in them, and then put 15 of those fish with some others in Spirit Lake, and put another 10 with telemetry tags in Cornelia. And we followed those fish for about 112 days. And we had about 90% survival rates of those fish over that, which is a huge number for survival of any stock fish population. So we feel pretty confident that we can, at least explore this as an option for some of our muskie populations here, looking at this product. So big cost savings potentially for some of our fisheries, hatcheries, anyway, I just wanted to share that we've been doing a lot of that research here in the past 5-6 years, and it's been going well, finding out some good information. Lastly, I talked about this at the last meeting as well, that we're doing also adult muskellunge research, looking at movement patterns of fish among basically the Okoboji chain and the lower chain. Mainly our research question here is why are fish leaving the system? When are they leaving the system? Because we know that when we lose fish into the Milford Creek and then the Little Sioux River, they're lost to the fishery because they can't get back through the electric fish barrier. So what is causing them to leave? And if they are getting into the river, where are they going? And are we able to sample them below the barrier effectively and move fish back up, using our electrofishing gear? Anyway, it's been a kind of an interesting project to be able to see where fish of this size and long-lived fish are going within a natural lake system. These tags here that DJ's implanting into this muskie, it'll be active for 6.83 years. So have data from that fish for that amount of time, as long as that fish stays alive and is swimming in the lake. So you can imagine the amount of data set you get with 25 to 50 fish tagged in this system. Those yellow squares are where the receivers are. So those are always listening for this tag. So you don't get like fine scale habitat information where that fish was, like, oh, he was at that weed line over here. You're getting just, oh, presence, absence, he passed through this area. Anyway, it ends up providing managers with very good information on what these fish are doing on a seasonal basis, and things that we might be, like figure out in terms of, things that might be causing additional mortality of them or whatever in order to manage these things more effectively. And I'm not going to go through a one fish movement in this presentation, just because it gets to be kind of sloppy. But I just wanted to point out that these fish in May into September of 2022 moved all over the place. I mean, there was fish that were, went across the Highway 71 bridge and went into east and west Okoboji, like 17 times. One fish went back and forth. And fish just moved all over the place. So there was really no general specific movement pattern, just that fish moved a lot. The blue is obviously the male muskies, pink is the female muskies here, and I thought maybe you'd be interested in what they're doing in the winter. So these areas where each of these markers are is where that fish stayed the entire winter. What's kind of interesting about this is that in the upper end of East Okoboji, in shallow water, we have muskies overwintering the whole year. There's 3 males and 2 females up in that less than 7 foot water area all winter. Whereas in the main basin of East Okoboji is predominantly males, and then those several fish in the south end of West Okoboji stayed in that area the whole time. Those 3 females that are in the middle of the lake, they moved all over the place that whole winter. So kind of interesting information. We'll be able to summarize this as we get more data and be kind of fun for you guys to look at. And then what do they do in the spring? They like flowing water. They go to where the flow is. They go up by the hatchery. Most of them did. 3 of them went by the outlet. Those 3 weren't the ones that actually went into the river, because we did have 3 that went over the outlet electric barrier in Lower Gar into Milford Creek. And one of those fish, interestingly, went all the way to Correctionville and then challenged the barrier at Lost Island, went back up to the Minnesota border. I mean, they're going all over the place when they get in these rivers. And then 2 of those 3 ended up being right below the electric fish barrier, some of those pools. So anyway, we're going to be getting, over time, we're going to get interesting movements of those fish, in the river system as well, and be able to hopefully effectively manage muskies in these populations better. That's all I had. It's probably a little long, but. Like I said, if there's any, we obviously take questions now, but I encourage you all to come to the hatchery. We'd like to talk to you guys if you're interested in any of this work we're doing in more detail. Any questions in particular for me before I hand over to Mike?
Yeah.
Not seeing any.
Thanks, Jonathan. And I can't tell you how much we rely on the information that Jonathan and DJ put together for our fisheries. They do an excellent job of kind of filling in the gaps, kind of informing our decisions when we start to look at stocking and stocking rates. I know we rely heavily on our aquaculture system, our fish culture system with Kim to raise that product. So once we kind of dial in on what works, then it's up to the hatcheries to actually produce those fish. And so it really fits together here. So it's nice to be here again, and I thank the club for being a great partner over the last year. You guys are doing some amazing stuff, getting a lot of kids involved, sponsoring the No Boundaries program. Just all of those things just show how much you guys care for the resource, and so we really appreciate that. It's been a fun partnership. Tonight I'm gonna go a little bit different direction on you, and talk a little bit about some long-term changes in the Iowa Great Lakes. And I'm going to talk specifically about the Iowa Great Lakes, but you can kind of think about some of the other lakes in the area as well. And then I want to finish up talking about invasive species, and especially Eurasian water milfoil. I think there's been quite a bit of misinformation and some rumors out there about what goes on. Even though we put out a lot of press and we've tried to do a lot of interviews, there's still a lot of information that's not correct out there. So I thought it'd be good for you guys to hear that information directly from us, and you guys can help get that out to friends and neighbors and folks that have questions, because these lakes are super important to everybody, and everybody's got a stake in them and cares about them. They want things to go the right way, and hopefully we're moving in that direction. I have an old document on my desk. It's the G.W. Prescott from 1930, and he did a study on the extremely undesirable conditions existing in many Iowa lakes. And most of the work that was in that study was actually looking at the Iowa Great Lakes, and it's got a whole bunch of neat details in it, and some good recommendations that we still would use, some recommendations that we probably would not use today. But there's a lot of really cool information in there. And I just want to put some perspective on where we've been and kind of where we're going with the Iowa Great Lakes, because I think there's a lot of concern about pressure and use. So back in 1930, they described some of these lakes with hundreds of thousands of dead fish every year, and those were summer kills. So they were happy. These were kills not from winter and not having oxygen. It was actually hundreds of thousands of fish during the summers. And when you start to look at why, one of the notes in that manual and that study showed that an estimated 30 million gallons of untreated sewage was dumped into East Okoboji on an annual basis. So you think back to that time, there was no sewage treatment. And there were these cities. The population was pretty close to what it is today, and they just didn't know any better. They just dumped it right into the lakes. A lot of the wells as well, a lot of the wells in the area were also polluted, and the Department of Health found that most of them were unsanitary when they came to do some work in 1927. They described hundreds of farm animals waiting in the water, and then my favorite line was shorelines literally lined and fairly reeking with debris of human origin. So they had a different way of writing in in the 30s. And then some other information I found, 1940-45, there was a blue-green algae that was blamed for a loss of 37 hogs, 4 sheep, 2 cattle, 3 horses, several dogs and cats, squirrels, chickens, turkeys, and songbirds. And kind of note, some of that water was actually sent down to Iowa State because they at that time didn't know what toxins were in the water that were causing this to happen. And the Iowa State had a veterinarian that looked at cleaning that water, filtering that water up, and then they injected it into guinea pigs. And within seconds, those guinea pigs were dead. So they knew there was something very poisonous about that water. That particular sample came out of Center Lake. But they didn't understand the algal toxins and how they could be really, really bad for you. And then lots of notes in those studies about aquatic plants being replaced by blue-green algae, and then mussel or mollusk diversity decreasing. So just kind of a snapshot of back in the day, the good old days. What I've got on the screen right now, though, is current information from a lot of volunteer water quality monitoring out of Lakeside Laboratory. This is 22 years of water quality or water clarity data on West Okoboji. And what you'll see is that there's actually an average back in around 2000 of 10-foot water clarity, best in the state, in early 1999 and 2000. Very good water clarity. Our averages today are right around 20 feet. There's been a doubling in water clarity on West Okoboji over that period. That's a pretty cool trend line. You know, it's been happening gradually through time. If we look at why that might be, the next graph shows phosphorus levels in West Okoboji Lake. And phosphorus is the nutrient that limits algal production and plant production. So there's a really good relationship between the amount of phosphorus in a lake and the amount of algae that the lake can grow, that green stuff. And so over time, we've actually seen a really significant decrease in phosphorus levels in West Okoboji. The trend is the same for East Okoboji and Big Spirit Lake. Increases in water clarity, not as much as West Okoboji, and then fairly significant decreases in total phosphorus. So that really tells us that something's changing in the lakes, and we're making a difference. There's been a lot of, especially since the 1980s, there's been a lot of conservation efforts that have taken place, a lot of wetland restorations, and things that have caused us to move in that direction. Sanitary sewer district, for example. Lost Island had a sanitary district that was put in as well to remove a lot of those nutrients away from the lake and get those treated. And so a good story, but there's one thing that's kind of complicating this whole story, and that's invasive species, and that's what I wanted to talk about. Not only are invasive species bad for the ecology of the lake, they can really disrupt things, but they also take our eye off the ball. So as a professional, in our office, Jed and I, we spend an inordinate amount of time trying to manage invasive species. And this is fairly recent. Back in 2007, we didn't really have any. We had an introduction of yellow bass in the early 2000s that we were kind of monitoring, but these other species weren't here. We had a couple other places in the district where we were kind of keeping an eye on Eurasian water milfoil infestation, and then zebra mussels were still off in the distance, over towards Clear Lake and the Mississippi River. Since that time, we've just been bombarded with invasive species issues, and it continues to get worse. And so I thought I'd kind of give an update on these things. I won't touch much on Asian carp, big-headed silver until the end. Zebra mussels, there's been a lot of concern, or maybe folks have seen some benefits of zebra mussel, thinking that water clarity increases in plant life are due to the zebra mussels in the lake. Some of that might be true, but I would say, if anybody hung out on Big Spirit Lake this year, how green that water was, how much kind of turmoil there was in water quality on Big Spirit Lake. These guys are really to blame. The huge explosion of zebra mussel population on Big Spirit Lake over about the last 2, maybe 3 years. And we're hopeful that that mussel population settles down and things kind of get back a little bit back to normal. We've seen their populations moderate a bit on East Okoboji and West Okoboji. There's still some flare-ups in parts of West Okoboji, but in general, folks on East Okoboji that live there, comment last year and this year that they're just not seeing very many mussels. And that's probably because the rest of the fishery and some predators have started to come into balance around them. Pumpkin seed, for example, are really eating a lot of those. And their pumpkin seed populations, the sunfish, pumpkin seed sunfish, numbers have really increased on the lakes, and I think we'll see that continue. Mostly what I'll focus on is this plant right here, which is Eurasian water milfoil. It's one that I hoped that we would never see in the Iowa Great Lakes, but at the same time, you got to expect it's going to make it here at some point. And so we did really good. We've had a good track record in Iowa of over 30 years preventing Eurasian water milfoil from getting to the lakes, but it came in. I'll touch just briefly first though on curlyleaf pondweed. This is an invasive plant that came into the lakes back in the late 1940s or 50s. Some of the early documentation was in the 1950s that plant made it into the Iowa Great Lakes. So it's been around a while. We see it every year, but most recently, and probably after that zebra mussel explosion on East Okoboji, we saw a massive explosion of curlyleaf pondweed, and that situation hasn't gotten any better. It seems to get more and more dense every year and spread to more and more places on East Okoboji. And now we're seeing a lot of it in the spring up on Big Spirit Lake as well. So it's not new to Big Spirit Lake, it's been there. It's just starting to get a competitive advantage and starting to grow really rapidly. So curlyleaf pondweed is just to explain it a little bit, is a really strange plant. Every plant in Iowa germinates in the spring, grows through the summer, and then dies back in the fall. Curlyleaf pondweed germinates in the fall, grows underneath the ice, and then comes to the surface and completes its life cycle in the spring, and then it dies back in summer. So late June is when it dies back. That's a really bad time in Iowa to have a big plant die off. Our water's really warm, it doesn't hold much oxygen. You have all this plant matter on the bottom of the lake just decaying, and we've seen some really large decreases in dissolved oxygen in portions of East Okoboji, to the point where we're kind of spooked that this might actually create one of those big summer kills. And so we've been looking at control methods for curlyleaf pondweed. A lot of states have. It's in all 48 of the lower states in the U.S. There hasn't been a lot of success in working with this plant. And so most of what we've been doing lately has been doing just spot treatments. And so since about 2017, we've worked our way up to about 2.6% of the surface area of East Okoboji for treatment. So not very much. We're basically just spraying a path or treating a path around the outside of the lake, and maybe a few travel lanes on the inside of the lake as well on that northern half. We have had to do more treatments down here in the southern half and then into the lower chain as well because of the excessive growth. But basically a spot treatment with a contact herbicide at a time when the native plants aren't germinated. And so we've been able to do fairly good at controlling it in the places that we've treated it. It's not ideal. It's not everybody's happy with that, but at least we're trying to do something. And working with the local community to do that. However, in 2022, as a lot of you know, we found Eurasian water milfoil in the East Okoboji chain. This is a much more aggressive plant, can be, especially for a lake like East Okoboji in the lower chain. And the community up in the Iowa Great Lakes came together very quickly to formulate a plan. We used a pretty novel approach, a new approach for treatment for Eurasian water milfoil. Typically we treat it in the summer with this herbicide called Sonar. And that Sonar is really effective at killing Eurasian water milfoil and leaving most of the other plants alone. We didn't think we could do that in the Iowa Great Lakes during the summer, and our aquatic management biologist for the state of Iowa, as a new position, is really good at this stuff. In fact, I think he's one of the best in the Midwest, if not the nation, in trying out new methods for invasive species control and aquatic plant control. And he recommended that we try this fall, winter, spring treatment. That's when the plant is underneath the ice. There's nothing else growing. It's just curly-leaf pondweed. And if we extend into the fall and into the spring a little bit with that treatment, we'll also kill off the Eurasian water milfoil. So we'll get kind of a 2-for-1 with that treatment. Well, for about $250,000, that's what the herbicide cost for that treatment through the winter. We did get 100% Eurasian water milfoil control. We can't find it in the East Okoboji chain. So that last winter's treatment looks to have been 100% effective at killing Eurasian water milfoil. It does not go to seed, so if you kill all the living plants, you kill everything. Curly-leaf pondweed, like I said, is also sensitive to this herbicide, and we got in 2023 about 90% control of that plant. That wasn't our target, but just as a side effect, it got really good control. We had about 90% of the curly-leaf pondweed. In East Okoboji and the lower chain, we did see fewer native plants. So the plants were there, but in much lower density. And that's probably because they're hitched up with curly-leaf pondweed a little bit. Curly-leaf pondweed makes the water a little clearer, allows the sunlight to penetrate, allows native plants to germinate and get started, and as curly-leaf pondweed dies back, those native plants flush up. And so there may have been some secondary effects to some of these native plants. But because we were effective, we don't plan to repeat this. And so we should see things kind of return to normal for next spring, 2024. So that's the story on our first treatment of Eurasian water milfoil and the curly-leaf pondweed treatment that was done underneath the ice last year. There's been a lot of states, a lot of folks that have been very interested in that. There's the application. I show this slide all the time because Amanda here is not wearing any personal protective equipment for this application. This particular herbicide that we put in has a super good safety profile, and it doesn't require you the label does not require you to wear any of those PPEs. So it's a pretty effective and very, very safe herbicide, but long acting. So remember that. It has to have contact with the plant for a couple of months to kill it. There's Jed, our technician in my office, Jed Sigworth, doing a bump application. So we have to maintain that maintain that concentration underneath the ice. And we even had to do that through the winter. I caught a picture of him doing some herbicide application during a blizzard on February 22nd. We had to get out and get that done. Just shows the amount of monitoring that we did. Every one of these data points is a sample of water drawn from the South Bay of East Okoboji. We did the same thing throughout the East Okoboji chain, 6 different locations. We monitored that sonar concentration. We had to maintain it in the 2 to 4 part per billion range. That's 2 to 4 drops in a semi-tanker of water. That's the concentration that we treat at. And you can see how things kind of get a little bit noisy here in the spring after the ice goes off. This would have been fall. Through the winter, we really didn't need to have our concentration up that late in the winter. And then we brought it back up and actually did our last bump of about 7 gallons in May. Again, 100% successful. So fast forward to this year, we're monitoring like crazy out there for Eurasian water milfoil. We don't want to miss any. And we found some in Miller's Bay canals, the Harbor canals, and Lazy Lagoon on West Okoboji. So it jumped across the lakes and ended up in those canal systems. We didn't see it anywhere else, like I said. It was only affecting about 19 acres in those canals, so not a big area, which allowed us to use a different product called Priscillacor. Priscillacor is a new age herbicide. It is actually targeted at Eurasian water milfoil. That's the plant that it kills. So in our area in northern U.S., the only thing it's really effective against is Eurasian water milfoil. So it's a pretty new technology. There's a couple other invasive plants that are on its label, but Eurasian water milfoil is the real target there. Again, very good safety profile. There's no restrictions or limitations for using it. And we are pretty confident that that treatment will eliminate milfoil from the canal system. So we'll be monitoring it next year and making sure that we stay on top of it. If we have to do any little spot treatments, we'll come back in and clean it up if need be. So we're keeping a really close eye on this stuff. It's very, very aggressive. It's not going to be good for us if it takes off. West Okoboji is a Class C drinking water lake, so a lot of water. A lot of people get their drinking water from it. It is also an outstanding Iowa water with special federal protections as well. And so we had all kinds of permits and checks and balances that we had to get before we could do any kind of an application on West Okoboji. And it actually delayed our treatment from August all the way to September 19th when we actually did the herbicide treatment. But all of those checks were made, all the proper permits were received. And there you can see Jason and Amanda. They're applying Priscillacor into the canal system. That was a half-day treatment, and they were done and out of there and back to the Boone Research Center. So we'll be watching very closely. This is what Eurasian water milfoil can look like. This is Mill Creek in O'Brien County. A very aggressive plant. It can grow up to 6 inches a day, shoot to the surface, and then once it does, it spreads out, creates a big mat on the surface. So it doesn't provide very good fish habitat because it's so sparse underneath. It just creates a big canopy on the surface. We had to do 2 treatments. We've done 2 treatments at Mill Creek in O'Brien County. Talked a little bit about Stolley's Pond tonight. We actually had to treat that. That also had Eurasian water milfoil, and we've been battling some Eurasian water milfoil at Lost Island Lake. We're on top of all of those. We feel like we're doing a good job of controlling at Lost Island. We're going to try a control technique there, and we're trying to eliminate it or eradicate it out of these 2 water bodies. And in Iowa, we have a pretty good track record of being able to do that, eradication of milfoil, which is why we've held it off for as long as we have. Just for your information, zebra mussels, we have a fairly recent infestation. It's been a couple years now at Lost Island Lake. We have a new detection at Silver Lake in Dickinson County. We don't see any adults there, but we're measuring the larval zebra mussels. Center Lake, same way. We're actually not able to find any adults there, but each year we're measuring larvals, zebra mussels, which means there's some adults out there somewhere. And then a new one as well is Lake La Jolla over in Lyon County, and that's in our district. So this doesn't cover the whole state. This is just our Northwest Iowa set of counties that Jed and I manage. So spending a lot of time at this. This has been a big time zone. I want to throw this up, and I don't want you to read all of these, but this is what we're facing in the future. So the ones in black over here, the ones that were first observed in the Iowa Great Lakes, for example, curly-leaf pondweed, 1955, milfoil, 2022, this last year in West Okoboji. We also found brittle naiad that we're going to be taking a look at. Yellow bass, silver jumping carp, big-headed carp, gizzard shad, zebra mussels. That's so far. Anything that's in red here are high-risk threats that we know are coming. They're marching their way across the United States. They're making jumps. Some of the ones that really scare us are hydrilla. That's an aquatic plant that the state of Iowa eradicated out of a pond in 1971, but it's getting really close again to Iowa. Starry stonewort has made a huge impact up in Minnesota, so we're watching that one very closely. Rusty crayfish is down in Storm Lake now. It's very close. So we're facing a lot of these threats, and it's unfortunate, but this is the reality. My message in all of this is, we have to manage these species once they're here, but it's best if our lakes are as healthy as possible before they get here, and that's really about keeping our eye on conservation, making sure we're doing nutrient and sediment reductions to our lakes, and protecting shorelines, doing all the things we can to make them as resilient as possible as these new invaders come in. Just a few district highlights for us, some things that I just thought you guys would be interested in. We have new stockings and fisheries coming back online at Little Swan Lake, Elk Lake, Trumbull Lake, and Diamond Lake. This is a stocking here of I believe, bluegills at Little Swan Lake. There's already been some good fishing at Little Swan. It's a little bit ahead of these others. Elk, Trumbull, and Diamond should be right behind them. But those should be a lot of fun if you get a chance to fish them. A little different fishing experience, but the fishing should be really good here in the coming years. We've been doing some work with Rock Rapids and Sanborn on new city ponds that they've constructed. And we've been doing some stockings with them to get those fisheries off and going and get them started in the right direction. We've been doing a lot of work this fall down at the Lost Island electric fish barrier. If you remember, this electric fish barrier protects the watershed from common carp. So this is downstream of the Blue Wing Marsh Complex, and all of the carp reduction work that we did back in 2010 and 11, and the restoration work we did at Lost Island Lake relies heavily on this electric barrier to keep carp from getting into the reproduction areas. So this is 10 years old. It went to heck this spring, failed. We had electrodes that rusted through and some wiring problems. And so by next week, this barrier should be back up and running. But it's been a significant construction project for us. We've been doing a lot of the work by hand, and we finally have an electrical contractor coming in next week to put the finishing touches on that. Another one in Dickinson County I don't think a lot of people know about is Westport Pond. This was a secondary roads pit. The county engineer had control over this Westport Pond through the years. Just recently, they did a large excavation of sand and gravel out of it, increased the size to about 22 acres. They are done, and they've turned it over to the County Conservation Board. While the contractor had it pumped down for excavation work, we took advantage of that time and renovated, got rid of all the carp, and we restocked it with bass and bluegill, and we'll have some catfish coming in there as well. So keep your eye on that pond. It's gonna be kind of fun in the next couple of years. A neat little fishing hole to go visit. And I think the county's really interested in really sprucing that up into a little nicer area. We've got a large lake restoration project at West Swan Lake. Keep your eyes on that. I think that's going to turn into a really neat fishery over there in Emmett County at West Swan. That's north of the Ingham and High complex. We have that drawn down. We'll be renovating the fishery this fall, winter, and then restocking it next year as the water comes back up into that lake. So a little over 1,000 acres of water there. Should be a really fun place. And then just finally, we've been working on some really large-scale shoreline restoration projects at Silver and Spirit Lake. These have been really fun to work on. They really look nice when they're done. Our wildlife guys have been working with us a lot on these. These are all woodland or oak savanna restorations on those shorelines, and really providing some neat habitat for both aquatic animals and terrestrial animals. So, just a picture of our team for the summer. A lot of fun to work with our seasonal staff out on the lakes and sampling fish. And then I thought I'd leave you with an action shot. Let me see if I can get this to play. So Jed's driving the boat and trying to film at the same time. And he actually had his camera in slow-mo mode, which is really cool. But this is down on the Big Sioux River. We were trying to help a graduate student collect some Asian carp for a study that she was doing. There she is up on the front of the boat. You can't really net these things. You really sample them by letting them jump into your boat. But Jed's gonna have an experience here, and the result of having a camera in one hand and the tiller handle in the other. So I'll let you ask him where that hit. So with that, that's all I've got. I don't know if we have any time for a couple questions, or you want to get going? Yeah. Any questions for any of the staff? Anything? The trout, our trout usually come from Decorah, from the Decorah Hatchery. Yep. So they came in today, yesterday. So take advantage of those trout. We'll be doing a second stocking of 1,500 in the winter when ice fishing starts up. Anything else? John? Yeah. So the question is, are we going to see a drop in crappies? We saw a big increase in panfish in general. We saw a big increase on East Okoboji. As those plants started to grow over the last few years on East Okoboji, the fishery responded. It just shows you how closely related good quality fisheries are with aquatic plants. I don't think that should affect them, affected John. I think things will be kind of back to normal next year. So it was, there were aquatic plants there on East Okoboji that they were lower density. Our survey showed the same plants, they were just in a lower density. They didn't make it up as tall. So I would, if I was betting and guessing, I would guess that East Okoboji will kind of be right back to where it was 2 years ago. So. No, that's another one. So I'm trying to remember the name of that crawdad. Yeah, I know it. I just can't think of it on the spot. But they're large, aggressive, fast reproducing crawdad species. The one that we're talking about is rusty crayfish, so it's a different species. Very similar. It outcompetes native crawfish very quickly. Yeah, yep. I think we're worried about all of those. Some of these species are not. Some of them from the southern United States are temperature intolerant. So like gizzard shad, for example, they're native in Iowa, but they don't make it up for much further north than here, or a little south of here. So to see them in our lakes maybe shows that there's maybe been some temperature changes that are allowing them to creep further to the north. But some of the invasive species that we look at or watch, they don't survive north. Like mosquito fish, for example, should not survive up here. They may make it a season or two and then petal out. So I'm not sure on that crawfish what its requirements are. But. All right. So the question was, do you think we'll have boat cleaning stations at every boat ramp? I could see a day where we actually had some check stations that folks could go to check in and then go to a boat ramp to launch. But that would change. That would take a change in code or law and quite a bit of additional funding for invasive species work. So with those two things there, I think we've kind of drawn up plans for what that would look like. It's just a matter of funding it and making a law change so that was a requirement. And if you drive out west, like Kim and I and our family did this summer, you see those check stations along the interstate, mandatory boat stops where people have to stop in with a boat. And it's not a bad idea. It'd be an inconvenience, but I think we're at the point where we better be more careful with how boats are being moved around the state and around the Midwest. Thanks.
Thank you, Mike and Greg and Kim and everyone that spoke. Some of what he just talked about is really on us. I mean, we need to pay more attention when we're on our boat ramp. Lower your motor, drain the water out, drain your live wells, clean the weeds off. It's just common sense stuff, but we all need to do a better job of that. So, with that said, we're going to do our veterans raffle. So, Kelly, you want to? We'll draw a number. The veterans should have your ticket. When your number is drawn, please go back to where Blake Mills and Adam is and pick your prize. Last four numbers, 8415. 8415. We got a winner somewhere? 8415. In the back bathroom? Oh, okay. Guys, check your number. 8415. Denny, what's your number? Suppose it's 8415? Go pick your. Got me. First winner is Denny. Denny is and his son Tim are responsible for doing our club newsletter, so they do a great job every year. So a little round of applause for him too. Which reminds me, if you'll look at your membership package tonight, there's a Gmail address to put any articles or pictures and send it so we can put those in the newsletter. Next ticket, 8425. 8425. In the back.
Nothing. I've never been to anything that looks nice. It's that yard.
8418. 8418.
Hey, couldn't understand.
8423. Next number, 8408. 8408. 8408. Kendall? Kendall's got it? Okay.
Oh,
8409. 8409. 8429. 8429.
The 20 plus ones. There's sticker keys.
8429.
Probably, yeah. They've already tiller there. You got that 17.
8414. 8413. 8413.
Hello, you look familiar.
I think I am.
You are.
Tell me.
Nadine Johnson, and you've credited all our programs forever.
8411.
She's filming right here.
8421, Bill. 8427. 8427. Well, Dale. 8426. 8426. 8426. Anybody? 8426. 8422. 8422. All right, so we have one ticket whose number was scratched off or torn off. There's got to be one veteran out in the audience that didn't get called yet, so raise your hand. Who didn't get called? Larry Slaughter. Yeah, but the one up here got scratched off. There we go, Larry. What? A package of socks back there, Larry. Once again, how about a round of applause for all of our veterans? What a great So the next thing we're going to do is bring our raffle tumbler up here for our big raffle tonight. Something that the club decided to change up a little bit this year. We decided to do one big raffle and sell tickets for 3 or 4 months. See if we could raise some money for our kids program. So that will be coming shortly. In the meantime, Dean informed me and Barry that we have 84 memberships signed up tonight and renewed. We have 19 new ones. Thank you to the new members tonight. We ended our year here with over 350 paid memberships, and a membership is a family unit. It's not just a husband or a wife, it's a family unit, so that's a lot of people. All you ready? Okay, so we have 2 raffles. One is the general raffle, one is for the Panoptics. We're going to do all the recording. Okay, so what's going to happen is we're going to call the number or name out, call the name out, I guess. And you'll come up here, and we'll have the prizes up here except for the big ice shacks. So we're going to do the Panoptics first. Once again, thank you to all of our local bait shops, our sponsors. Some of the bait shops donated some prizes, and they gave us an opportunity to buy them at a reduced price. So here comes the drawing for the Panoptics. No, I'm not going to go.
Yeah, I've got one already too. They sell it to me yet. So we put his bar on there.
Last year, expensive was
Oh my God. Jamie Franken. There you go, Jamie. I sold Jamie those tickets, and he was very generous with his donation, so. Okay, next drawing now is our general raffle. And the first prize is a Helix 7 all-season GPS. We got the prizes up here. Helix 7, Darwin, you bringing them up? Bring them up one at a time. Helix 7 first, then the Bubba electric knife a second. Tyler Herrig. And once again, you don't have to be present to win. We'll record this and call you. As Tyler Herrig is here, he's the winner of the Helix 7. Congratulations, Tyler. Next prize is a Bubba electric fillet knife. Dan Delperdick. Dan here? Oh, there he is. He's right here. Next prize is a Sims tackle bag. Tom Albrecht. Tom Albrecht. Oh, Nathan's brother. Okay. Bring that over to Nathan here. Next prize is 2 Ice Fish Pros rod, or tip-ups, I mean.
I saw some of those in that magazine you had the other day. I thought they looked good.
What is this? Mary Albrecht. Is your relation to her, Nathan? I know this raffle was your idea, but... There you go.
This is why I'm not pulling up things.
Okay.
It's got like...
Next prize is a $250 Shields gift card, donated by Shields. Lanny Hansen. Lanny Hansen. Now we have an ice armor suit.
You gotta get through.
Russell Sweet. Russell is not here tonight. His wife had some health issues and she's in the hospital tonight. It's over here. The gift card. Where you got that? So Russell won the ice armor. Fraybill bait cooler. Okay. Fraybill bait cooler.
Okay, when you bait cooler.
That's about what Dad does now.
Tyler Herrig, another winner.
He'd say, it's like, no, I'll do that.
Now we have an otter sled. We're going to leave that back there. So you can pick that up in the back.
Evan's got one. I couldn't get the hang of it. Yeah. I couldn't get the hang of it.
Darwin Johnson.
Couldn't get
the otter.
I've only tried it once.
Next prize is a 2-person half-day guided ice fishing trip with Northland Men of All Trades. There's a certificate for that one. Ray Nowacek.
More raffles.
Ray here tonight. 24-volt, 8-inch Strike Master. Here's that guided trip. Nathan Voigt. Nathan. Okay. St. Croix ice rod and jigs. Now, whoever wins this St. Croix, we forgot the jig box back in the shop. So we will get the jig box to you. That is Jim Sikora. Get your rod up here, Jim, but the jig box, we'll get it to you. Polaris North Star Cooler. That's going to stay back there. That's a big one. That was donated by Matt Hagedorn. Mike Wilson. Mike Wilson wins the big cooler. Otter hard shell rod case.
I'm really looking forward to using it.
Oh boy. Nate Cavias. I gotta have help with that. It's an Algona name. Nate Kajevoslo. You know him? Is he here tonight, Scott?
I don't see Nate.
All right. Yep. Vexilar FLX 28. Lance Selzer. Got electric skins it. Steve Grimius. Now we got a 6-person ice equipment. Oh, yeah, Raffle electric fillet knife first. Heath Williams. Heath Williams. Oh, that way, Heath.
No, doesn't he get No, he won.
Okay. 6-person ice equipment rental from On Ice Rentals. We have a certificate for that. Alan Avron. Alan Avron. Okay. Two Hornet 13 ice fishing combos. Matt Bathke.
Hey!
A Frable flip over shack. That's going to stay back there, guys. John Vanderhaeg. John Vanderhaeg won the Frable flip over shack. We have an Otter Pro Lodge tent. That will stay back there also. That's a big one. Tim Hilbert. Tim Hilbert. You want to check? Otter Pro Lodge. Next one is a Big Buddy heater.
Last name. Braden.
It says Braden. We got a phone number, so we'll get it to him. Okay.
What is it?
Phone number is 291-0925.
That's your number?
Or maybe that's a 0085. Wow. Yeah, it's not. Striker ice bibs.
Yeah.
Rich Rost. Rich Rosty. Okay. Fish Scout camera, Rodney Steffes. Rod Steffes. Okay, all right. So that concludes our big raffle. Thank you everyone for participating. Thank you for coming tonight. There's some leftover pizza. If anybody'd like to buy a pizza, they're $10. You can take home with you whatever's left. See Dean Jacobson. So hope to see you again next year.